dailynews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Good morning. I'm Helen Michalasi, and I'm running for mayor of Clinton. As mayor, I will bring my experience in managing a $9.2 million budget and negotiating benefits for over 100 employees to the job. My ability to work with families, law enforcement, and local and state leaders will be a benefit to our city. Clinton is a great city, and when we all work together, we can move Clinton forward together.
Paid for by Michalasi for mayor.
When it comes to fungicides, there's only one way to spell yield. N-E-O. Miravis Neo is the 2024 #1 retailer recommended corn fungicide for a reason. It dominates spots, rots, blights, and stress to out-yield competitive brands like Veltima. And there's 6 years of university data to prove it. Ask your Syngenta retailer about using Miravis Neo for more yield more often. Based on 2024 Spreadis Retailer Efficacy Study. Always read and follow label instructions.
News time is 7 minutes after 8 o'clock on this Wednesday. Top of the morning from the newsroom of Regional Radio and DeWittDailyNews.com. I'm Seth Lawrence with this expanded 8 o'clock newscast, streaming to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Starting in the school year 2026-27, Lincoln and Douglas schools in Clinton will be structured differently. Tuesday night, the Clinton Board of Education approved a plan that would move pre-K to Douglas School and kindergarten and first grade to Lincoln School. Principal of the two buildings, Jessica Patrick, along with Scout Savage, Angela Ball, and District Curriculum Coordinator Kara Jensen, presented plans of how they arrived at those decisions and reasonings for them. One of the barriers in the current setup of the two buildings is class sizes and staff splitting time between the two buildings.
And so some of the barriers that we are encountering that we are trying to problem solve around is first flexibility with class sizes and balanced class lists. So if we look at just the Lincoln and Douglas, our class sizes are not necessarily equal. We do have larger class sizes at Lincoln currently than we do at Douglas. And so that comes with its set of challenges as well. Efficiency of scheduling staff. So this really encompasses quite a few staff members that are shared between buildings. For example, we have our English language learners, and so Mrs. French goes between both buildings and tries to service both schools. We also have our OT, PT, which is in the special education area, that we're trying to split, speech as well. And in scheduling of staff, we also look at time that is spent in the buildings. And so that's one of the things that we needed to think around of how to service kids. Our resources. So with the split buildings, we also look at the role of Jessica as probably in the staff, but also as a resource. And with the resources, even talking around staff and problem solving, some of our teams have access more time than others and trying to split between both.
According to Savage, there were several things discussed when they brainstormed the idea. She says everything from the master schedule, programs, and facilities were a part of the things staff brought up.
Some of the brainstorming things that we came up with were the master schedule. That was discussed a lot. Talking about the different specials, PE, art, music, those types of things. The facilities, using the restroom, that's really important. Where pre-K uses the restroom, they have to have 4, whereas kindergarten first, we only use the restroom maybe a couple of times a day. We have scheduled bathroom breaks. Transportation, there is more different areas at Lincoln School for transportation than there is at Douglas. That was a different aspect we had to look at. Class sizes, again, she said our class sizes are not equal. Lincoln has more and Douglas has less in our classrooms, and that makes a big difference, having a class of, let's say, 19 compared to 25. The special education services will be held a little bit better. This will impact our students a ton with different types of interventions. And then we also have a shared staff. So this will be easier for housed in one facility so that our shared staff can help us better in different ways.
Feedback from both families and the district staff were part of the process. Jensen points out community feedback came back very positive.
Part of that process was collecting feedback. That was going to be very crucial for this whole process, was about this. Let's kind of crowdsource finding solutions for a lot of the logistics that we're going to have to figure out. So we sent restructuring feedback surveys to staff. In January, we also hosted an informational night for Douglas and Lincoln families. And then we sent out another survey to families as well as staff following this informational night, just to gauge kind of where they were with this. We proposed, this is what we're considering. We would like to know how this impacts you. What are your thoughts? What are some concerns and things that we would need to consider moving forward? I felt like we had a pretty valid number of responses come through for the surveys. It was overwhelmingly positive. It was a very crucial piece for us to get that parent feedback because they were very student-driven. So they understood all the logistics that we would have to figure out, but they're also coming at it from how this would enhance their child's life. So it's a very interesting perspective for us to have throughout this process.
After feedback from the community, staff, and a full staff gathering from both buildings with Superintendent Drew Goebel and Jensen, the decision was then made to restructure the two buildings pending approval from the Board of Education.
So in February, Drew and I attended a full staff meeting of Lincoln and Douglas to address additional concerns, answer questions. Some questions came up about the future. Some questions came up about additional building. Some questions came up around schedule, trying to think through others that we were addressing. But I felt like the staff tried to share what they were thinking at that time and some majors. And so at that time, given the feedback from those staff surveys, in addition to the parent feedback, Mr. Goebel at that time did share that we will be moving forward with a restructuring and that we are looking for additional information from them on the when would be the best time. But given all the feedback that we had previously, that plan, we will be moving towards that. And so that was shared at that February meeting from Mr. Goebel.
From there, timing was the priority, and Jensen indicates one of the concerns expressed was rushing into the change. The decision was made to wait a year and implement it in the school year 26-27.
So in my second bullet there, the building leadership team looked at more of then the concerns and the synthesized data. So the concerns from there really led into the choice of waiting a year. And because there was not necessarily a solid decision of when or which buildings, the concerns that were being brought up needed to be addressed, and we needed to take the time to think through those, plan. It would be ill-advised for us to say, okay, we can make it work at the end of this year, and those concerns aren't valid. So we wanted to take the time next year to kind of plan through those concerns, address them. And even at this point, I think it should be noted that and I would say even now, there is not complete consensus among the staff that they are feeling that this is the best move right now or in the future. And so one of the things that we want to do is to be able to hear those concerns, be able to plan around them. So to have 100% on board would be inaccurate. Would that be great? Sure. But there are concerns from staff out there, and we want them to be able to share them as we go and open our doors to hear them and receive them. Once we are able to make a decision and start planning, I think a lot of that will be alleviated over time, but we just have to get to that point as well.
Jensen believes there is a lot of benefit to a restructuring of the buildings to bring all students of the various grade levels together.
So then what would this proposed plan gain us? What are the outcomes that we need to look at? So we're going to go back to that original slide, which is that flexibility within classes. It does eliminate that boundary line. Whether we like it or not, that is out there, that there is a perception that a school might be better than another school. And so that perception is removed. We remove that, which helps with some of those student relationships headed into CES. And so looking at balanced class lists with student support. So special education is now accessible. Our crisis teams are accessible. Our English language learners are housed in one location. We're able to increase services there because Mrs. French wouldn't have to move between buildings. And our academic needs. So we look at, again, I brought up intervention and the number of students that we serve at one building versus the other building. We're able to equalize those groups a bit easier with our current academic needs. So we have more effective use of resources. So new curriculum, we brought up ELA, but also really looking at those interventions, the availability of staff on hand. We have interventionists, like our SEL interventionist, who travels between buildings and is split by schedule. So that's very hard when a student needs might be hired at another building to be able to then create room in the schedule because she's supposed to be at a different building. So all being housed in one location. This also plays into Tri-County staff being centralized as well as support staff. Improved collaboration. So with having teams across 2 schools, Jessica worked last year in starting some of that team collaboration and continues this year as well. And our teachers working together on a day-to-day basis. Jessica last year started staff meetings together and just really kind of building that unity. So building on that headed into the proposed 26-27 school year. Data analysis. So when we look at student need, we're now able to look at kindergarten as a whole and first grade as a whole instead of in separation, which gives us more information. Again, when teachers are meeting in team meetings, both schools have team meetings within their grade level. So a lot of that shared lesson design, really bringing expertise to the table and learning from each other. And our problem-solving teams. So when we have a student in need, we have a lot of heads at the table, and so be able to use those resources more effectively.
Goebel admitted there are a lot of unknowns with this transition. However, they are giving themselves a year to work through all the concerns of staff and come up with those solutions over the next year.
There are a lot of unknowns, and being able to get started will allow some of the, we can finalize some things and we can get going. And I think that, I don't want to just, we've been talking about consolidating grades for years. And I am excited about this. I know there's going to be a lot of work, but I think the benefits to this will be well worth it. But I definitely want to think things through. I think, in my opinion, I think we've been very collaborative and trying to get all the information we can and not rush things.
Amanda Moser is a first grade teacher and part of the curriculum leadership team at Douglas School and spoke in favor of the plan, but also the importance of teachers being prepared for such a big change.
We're very passionate about our kids. We want what's best for them, and there's a lot at stake. The restructuring isn't the huge thing for us. I think we just want to make sure that we have a good, solid plan in place, and at least knowing we get another year to kind of plan out some things will help, I hope, because at first it was said that we might have to go next year, and I was one that I said I am not ready. I do not want to pack up my things. 19 years in one classroom, I don't want to go. But I think if we have the time, hopefully, to come up with a good plan, whether it's Lincoln, Douglas, whatever, then I'll be the first one to pack up and go and be ready. Because I do want to be able to collaborate with the other first grade teachers. It's been very hard over 19 years to be split. And yeah, to say it's a long hallway, even Mr. Nettle said that too. I'm like, it's an extremely long hallway on some days because they're over there and I'm here. So, and trying to be one together, that's hard to say we are, because there's just the dynamics of the kids, the dynamics of the homes that they're coming from, all of that is just made it's hard to be equitable with all of them. And it's just the way it is, like at Douglas, because I can speak for Douglas, our kids in general get a lot of the low kiddos, a lot. And they were speaking to that earlier about interventions. We have a lot of kids in interventions at Douglas. And that's just because of the kids that we have in the neighborhood.
The board approved the restructuring plan unanimously. Get news anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Find out how you and your family can save up to 40% on the meat, produce, and grocery items you use every day by clicking the Clinton Save-A-Lot icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Peterson Insurance Services in Clinton is a 2014 Pekin Insurance Illinois Agency of the Year. Jay Peterson here from Peterson Insurance. Find out about Pekin's auto, home, or life insurance by clicking on our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Farmers across America are using drones to increase crop yields and reduce costs. Drones can spray specific areas in need of pest or weed control, spread seed, spot crop nutrient deficiencies. In some cases, they can replace a more expensive tractor. During March 2025, we salute the men and women of American agriculture.
This salute is brought to you by the Macon County Farm Bureau, where membership means value.
45 Bible.
With SRN Sports, I'm George Williams. In NBA action last night, the two top teams in the East were on the floor. And it was the Clippers upending the Cavaliers 132-119, but the Celtics defeated the Nets 104-96, so that leaves Boston now 6.5 games behind Cleveland in the chase for the Eastern Conference title. Elsewhere was the Warriors over the Bucks 104-93, and the Hawks beat the Hornets 134-102. NHL play, one overtime game. The Ducks over the Stars 4-3. Canadiens down the Senators. Flames winners over the Rangers. It was the Islanders defeating the Penguins 4-2. Capitals over the Red Wings 4-1. Blues beat the Predators 4-1. The Kraken defeated the Blackhawks 6-2. Oilers over Utah 7-2. And it was the Canucks downing the Jets 6-2. Major League Baseball right now, the Dodgers and Cubs playing in Tokyo. This is SRN Sports. In the NCAA Men's March Madness tournament, Alabama State made a last-second layup to defeat St. Francis of Pennsylvania 70-68 in one of the play-in games. North Carolina trounced San Diego State 95-68. Two more games tonight: Mount St. Mary's against American University and Xavier against Texas. Well, politics intersected with sports yesterday when President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin had a discussion over the war in Ukraine, but they also discussed a series of hockey games that would involve players between both countries. Mr. Trump said he supported the idea of organizing the games in which U.S. and Russian players would be included, both from the NHL and the KHL, which is the top Russian league. The NHL says it wasn't party to the talks. In crime news intersecting with sports news is a woman charged with second-degree murder in the death of a television reporter covering the Super Bowl in New Orleans. This is SRN.
Time now for a look at sports. I'm Seth Lawrence with this report. Tate Brandenburg and Ian Hayes drove in 3 runs apiece, and Maroa-Forsyth made easy work of Meridian in an 18-1 3-inning romp Tuesday in high school baseball action from Forsyth. Brandenburg was 2 for 2 with a double, triple, and 3 runs scored in addition to his 3 runs driven in. Reed was 0 for 2 and had a sac fly. Caden Rose, Grady Rose, and Caden Parrott drove in 2 runs apiece. The Trojans used a 9-run first inning to get out early and kept the pressure on with 4 more in the second and 5 more in the third, activating the 15-run mercy rule. Grady Rose, Ace Giles, and Camden Trendler hit doubles for Maroa-Forsyth. Reed pitched 3 innings of 1-run ball. He struck out 6, walked 1, and allowed 3 hits. The Trojans even their record at 1-1. They visit Tuscola this afternoon. MJ Hall struck out 13 and was dominant over 6 innings, leading Argenta-Oreana to a 13-1 win over Central A&M in season-opening high school baseball action from Moweaqua Tuesday. Hall allowed an unearned run on 2 hits and walked 1. Jackson Finch was 2 for 3 with an RBI, while Mason Markham drove in 2 for the Bombers. Argenta-Oreana starts the season 1-0. They host Tri-City on Wednesday. Torrin DeLary's walk-off double secured a 3-2 win for Normal West over Rochester in non-conference high school boys baseball action Tuesday in Normal. Sam McCulley singled to start the 7th. Nolan Schultz came on to run for McCulley, who stole second to get into scoring position. Normal West got 2 runs in the first, highlighted by an RBI single from Chase Newth. Rochester got runs back in the 3rd and 5th innings to tie the game at 2. The score stayed that way until the 7th. Ty Beckman picked up the win for the Wildcats with 5 innings of 1-run relief. He struck out 8, walked none, and permitted 3 hits. McCauley finished 2 for 3 with an RBI for Normal West, who is 2-0 on the season. They travel to Limestone on Thursday. Max Heinemann's 2-run home run highlighted a 5 RBI afternoon, leading Normal Community to an 11-7 win over Morton in non-conference high school baseball action Tuesday in Morton. Heinemann's 2-run shot in the 4th inning put the Ironmen up 5-3. Morton would get those 2 back in its half of the 4th and added 2 more in the 5th to lead 7-5. Normal Community scored 6 runs in the 7th inning, including an RBI single from Heinemann. He brought in 2 in the 2nd inning as a part of a 3-run frame that tied the score at 3. Kyle Beatty scored 3 runs and drove in a run on a bases-loaded walk. Brady Burkhart, Andrew Nauer, Gavin Bourne, and Gavin Swartz had RBIs for the Ironmen. Normal Community starts the year 1-0. They host Pekin today. Bloomington jumped out early, and Lincoln could not recover in a 7-2 season opening loss in Bloomington Tuesday in high school baseball action. The Raiders answered an early run, a Lincoln run, to tie the game at 1 in the 1st. Bloomington scored 2 in the 2nd and 3 in the 3rd to go up 6-1. Drew Hayes was 2 for 4 with an RBI for the Rail Splitters. Parker Grau finished 1 for 3 with a double and an RBI. Ashton Corley was 1 for 2 with a double and 2 runs. Lincoln starts the year 0-1. They travel to Tri-Valley today. A late offensive surge sent Heyworth past Delavan 12-4 in non-conference high school softball action from Delavan Tuesday afternoon. The Lady Hornets scored 9 runs over the final 3 frames to put the game away. Sydney Ditchin's 3-run homer in the 6th inning was the big hit of the afternoon. She finished 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs scored. Grace Steens was 3 for 5 with 3 doubles, 2 RBIs, and a run scored for Heyworth. Gabby Dow and Haley Rogers all drove in runs for the Lady Hornets. Heyworth is 1-1 on the season and hosts Central A&M on Thursday. Rantoul jumped out early and never looked back, dispatching Blue Ridge 7-1 in season-opening high school softball action in Blue Ridge Tuesday. Bianca Walton struck out 10 across 7 innings of 1-run ball for the Lady Eagles. The lone run she surrendered was unearned and permitted 2 hits. Addison Rose and Ellie Schleeper accounted for the only hits for the Lady Knights. Blue Ridge begins its season 0-1. They visit Martinsville on Friday. Get sports anytime from your computer or mobile device.